Hello YouTube, guitar players of YouTube, welcome to another live stream with me, Anthony George, Cutting Edge Guitar, my online learning platform. So, let me just make sure that everything's working okay, which I think it is on here. If there's any problems, do let me know on the stream. So, what's going on today? This is another live intermediate advanced lesson. I've been doing a series of these recently, so let's just do a little bit of housekeeping. How this has been working, I come here, do a bit for my YouTube audience, and at the end of this particular lesson, I'll continue the lesson on for my members over at Cutting Edge Guitar. Cutting Edge Guitar is my online learning platform. I've got a massive content library that is constantly growing all the time there. I've introduced recently a beginner's course as well as an advanced program. So if you're a complete beginner and you want to get your start, you can come over there and check all of that out. Like if you've never even touched a guitar before, it will work from there all the way up to at the moment I've got people playing songs with open chords and all of that good stuff, but I'm going to continue adding things to that on a weekly basis. So check that out. Also, my advancing guitar player course is really comprehensive. There's massive amount of stuff in there, and also all of this stuff, what I'm talking to people about here, kind of bolsters a lot of the information that I've got in those sorts of things. I also have a host of books that I wrote that are now only available digitally at the Cutting Edge Guitar platform as well, so do check those out if you want to support me and also get an absolute ton of material yourself at the same time. So let's talk about the actual lesson material for today. So I want to build on what I've done in the previous streams. So in the past well, it's been about 8-9 weeks or so, we've been looking at playing modes of the C major scale along the length of a single string. That's a really good way to practice and understand scales, seeing them in a straight line, because when you start practicing things like this on the guitar, there can be a lot of overwhelm when it comes down to that sort of thing. So playing in a straight line is a very sensible way to see the scales. Now I'm not going to go over all of that stuff because it's been done in all the previous videos, so you can check that out if you want to. What I want to talk about today is something that's been brought up by a couple of my students in my platform. It's something that I hear a lot of people get confused about, which is derivative and parallel modal thinking. So, if I just recap for everyone the notes of C major on the high E string. If I was to start it from a C, we'll find that at the 8th fret on our high E string, and we'll go C, D at the 10th, E at the 12th, F at the 13, G at 15, A at 17, B at 19, back to C at 20. Now, we could play from the lowest note on our string, which is the open high E string. So if I'm playing from there, because there's obviously an E in the scale, I'll go E, F at the 1st fret, G at the 3rd fret, A at the 5th, B at the 7th, C at the 8th, and then we just carry on from there. So what I've been getting people doing is improvising and jamming around on C major over some jam tracks that I've included over at my platform. These are just modal vamps. They don't have chord progressions on them. They're just purely modal. So let's check one of these out. So if I play over the top of that. I've told, throughout these lessons I've talked to you about loads of different ways that you can practice these things. For one thing, if you're just mapping the scale, playing like a 16th note pattern on it like this sort of thing. So, mapping the scale and doing all of that stuff and trying to get creative with it is one particular thing, but understanding this thing of derivative and all the rest of it. Well, if I just change the backing track, I'm now putting a D Dorian backing track on. It sounds like this. Now the thing that's happened here, I've just realised, I've actually made a little bit of an error. I didn't record this for my members, so I'll start doing that now. Hi members, sorry I chopped off the beginning of this video for you, so when you see this, the recording of this in the Cutting Edge Guitar platform, it will miss the first bit of the YouTube stream, but never mind, you will get the extra bit at the end. So, now that I've put the thing from the D Dorian backing track on, right? What's happened is my tonal center has changed. So I'm now not playing actually in the key of C anymore. What I'm doing is I'm playing in the key of D minor, and I'm treating this as like basically I'm playing all the same notes, right? But D minor or D is now my all-powerful root note. So if I play a C is no longer the root note. C is my flat 7 relative to my D. Okay? So this is basically, it means that all of the intervals that we've been playing that belong to that C major scale, everything has changed in terms of its perspective. Now, this is where all this confusion comes from when it becomes what's this? Liking the beard. Thanks, man. Sorry, that's throwing me off. So the derivative versus parallel thinking. So if I'm playing my C major scale, okay, this is like the parental major scale that we are looking at extracting all of these notes from, okay? But the point is, when I change that backing track to D Dorian, okay, one of the things that you could say about this, D Dorian is the C major scale notes, but starting on the second degree. So what that means is that way of looking at it is you're thinking of D Dorian derives from the C major scale, okay? But the thing is, the parallel way of thinking is that D Dorian is like a D major scale, which would sound more like this. But what we've done is we're going to flatten the third, okay, and we're going to flatten the seventh, okay? So there are two different ways of looking at it. So just to recap that again, when you are thinking of derivative thinking, okay, you're thinking that, for example, if you're playing D Dorian, if you're thinking of that as it's C major starting on the second degree, you're thinking derivative. You're thinking about where does that mode come from. But if you're thinking of D Dorian as like a major scale, but with a flat 3 and a flat 7, you're thinking in terms of parallel. Now, when you're looking at all of this stuff, it's a big question is, what's the right way to do it? This is one of the things that a lot of people will say all the time. It's like, what's the right way to think? Well, in the context that we're doing things here, now that I've put on a D Dorian backing track, what would be the sensible thing to do is to think in terms of parallel thinking. So I'm thinking as D as my root note, and all of that, the notes of my C major scale, I'm now thinking of those intervals relative to D. So when I play an E note, I now think of that as the major second against D. And when I'm playing then my F, that's my minor third. G is the perfect fourth, A is the fifth, B is a major 6 relative to D, C is a flat 7, and then we've got back to D, our root note. Now, the thing with this is where learning the formulas for all of the modes becomes really, really important. So again, that's something that I've talked about in previous lessons on these previous streams, and I've also included all of that stuff underneath and with the lessons that I've done over at Cutting Edge Guitar. Because what you want to have in your head every time that you move to a new mode, you want to be able to think about that formula on the fly. Let's say, for example, I'm going to change this again to E Phrygian, Okay, so E is now becoming my root note. So that's the lowest note on my high E string. So with derivative thinking, I'd be thinking E Phrygian is the third mode of C major. If I'm thinking parallel thinking, I'm thinking, well, E, compared to an E major scale, E Phrygian has 1 flat 2, flat 3, it has a normal 4, we've got 5, we've got flat 6, flat 7, and back to that root. Okay, so I'm thinking about the formula. So E to F, flat 2. Now when you go up to your minor third, obviously that's a very characteristic note of any minor mode, or a minor chord, of course. So of course another characteristic interval of this mode is at flat 6. But see, I wouldn't be thinking about those intervals particularly if I was thinking. I wouldn't be thinking about the intervals if I was thinking about which way. If I was thinking derivative, I'd just be thinking, oh, well, this is C major, but I'm playing E Phrygian. So I'm not really thinking about the notes. What I'd be doing there is thinking in terms of shapes and thinking about where everything is on the instrument, that's one of the things that a lot of guitar players probably get wrong. And I'm certainly not slagging anyone off here because, you know, this is hard stuff to understand. But I think if you're just thinking, okay, this is where all of the notes of the C major scale are, you'll be missing something because you might go, well, I know I can play all of these shapes along just that first string. But if you're going, well, yeah, that note is in the scale, but it doesn't feel very resolved there, does it? Or you know, it's not a very nice interval. Although it's an important interval, you want to hear that flat 9 resolve. If you're just landing on it because you go, well, all of these notes are available to me because I know the shape, you might end up playing something that doesn't sound particularly great. But like I say, if you're targeting that flat 9 because you're thinking from the parallel perspective of like, oh, okay, so E's my root and I want to target that to get that Phrygian sound, but I know how to resolve it, that makes a really, really big difference. So, I don't want to make this particular stream a super long one, so I'm going to end it there for, what's this? I've got a message here from Josh. I do this thing you're talking about, thinking in derivative. I will try thinking parallel from now. Well, I absolutely hope it helps you, my friend. That's obviously what we're here for. But it's not like I say, it's not like there is any right or wrong, particularly with this. I think that there's a time and a place for each. So, for example, there's plenty of famous guitar players out there. I won't name any names here, just in case I upset anybody or anything like that. But there's plenty of people out there that always would think in terms of, if they're playing on a dominant 7th chord, for example, which in the key, I've got my pick, I'll use a different one. In the key that we're playing in, so looking at our C major scale, dominant 7 turns up on the G, on the 5th. Well, it does that in any major scale, of course, but so you might think that on that you ought to be thinking, if the G dominant 7th chord is there and you're thinking of parallel thinking, you should be thinking in terms of G mixolydian. But if you're seeing that and you like to think in terms of derivative, you'd be like, oh, I can play C major scale over all of that. You're still gonna, like, you might visualize the shapes the same way and all that stuff. The thing that I think would be missing for you there is that you wouldn't lean on the notes the same way. Because when I'm seeing a dominant seventh, the thing that I'm thinking about most importantly is the arpeggio. I'm thinking about the root, the third, the fifth, the flat seven. I just added an extra little note in there because I like to hear the fourth on there. But yeah, the thing is, I'm thinking of from the perspective of the G, which is what's helping me think about the intervals. If I was thinking just of C major, this is one of those things that probably leads guitar players, and don't get me wrong, I am into what I'm about to talk about. It's what leads a lot of guitar players into the thing of going, oh, I know what shapes I can play on that, and then they end up playing the, you know. So like, you know, shreddy sort of patterns and stuff, because you go, well, these are the 3 notes per string shapes that work over that chord. And don't get me wrong, I love all of that, I'm into it, me too. But if you're not thinking about the intervals relative to the chord that you're actually playing on, it's like, how do you get out of those runs and then play something that really relates to the chord, and rather than just playing over shapes? Let's have a look at what... it's useful. So it seems like they can both be useful, but it's useful to at least be able to think in parallel, which I'm currently unable to do. Man, do you know something? I think that's really cool that you can just come onto a live stream thing like this and just, you know, openly admit that. For not that exactly like there's millions of people here on this stream, but later on after I've finished this, there'll be people that will probably watch this back, and if they look through those comments and all that stuff, I don't know, man, like, there's one thing, I was talking to a student about this last night. I find the guitar world is actually quite unfriendly. We're not very nice to each other online, guitar players. And I don't know why. Like, if someone comes out online and they say something like this, where I don't really understand this parallel thing, like, versus the derivative thing or whatever, rather than being like, oh, well, you suck then, or some of that stuff that you see, like, online from people, why don't you, like, well, if you do understand it, support them and, like, help these people out. And also, I would say this, there's a lot of people out there that are talking about these things when they actually don't understand it. That's something I've seen online quite a lot, is especially in, like, Facebook theory groups. That's something, I see that stuff all the time. I'm a member of a couple of them, and I think I've got to get out because it sort of does your head in. But you see people commenting on some theory things, and then you're like, you don't actually know what you're on about, do you? But there you go. Hey, I'm trying to improve. Being honest helps with that. Man, do you know what? That is absolutely true. Being honest with yourself is absolutely the only way to get results. I'm going to pick up my other pick because I don't like this pick that I've got down here. Yes, it's absolutely the only way. So, like, it doesn't matter whether you're doing, if you've got technique problems or theory problems or whatever it is. The thing is, this stuff that I'm talking about here, it's fairly easy to resolve that issue. So like I say, like, all I've talked about here is that if there's a G7 chord being played in the background of your backing track, your band, what your bass player's doing, you know, your bass player might be playing a line around G7 arpeggio, something like that. Instead of seeing what we've worked on here, and seeing that as the root, because it's not, you know, we're not playing C major, we're playing G mixolydian. If you're resolving there and then leaning on the notes as in, like, the third and the flat 7 and all that stuff, like, you're going to have more fun playing around that chord because you're going to play something that relates much more to that chord than just running up and down shapes or something. Another question, by the way, do you give one-on-one lessons? I do. They are super limited at the moment, and because of purely on time. I'm about to, when I end this stream, I'm about to start teaching for the evening. But if you want to get in touch with me about one-to-one lessons or anything like that, you can get in touch with me via the platform Cutting Edge Guitar. If you just go to the website, you'll find my email address on there. Shoot me an email and I can let you know about availability and how it all works. So on that note, actually, I think it would be a good time to end the stream here, and I'll carry this on from my members over at Cutting Edge Guitar. So thanks for your time, guys, that have come and watched me here on YouTube, especially you, Josh, for getting involved in the comments and all that stuff. That's been really, really helpful, man. It's been good to speak to you, and I look forward to speaking to you another time soon. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Hope it's been helpful. See you another time. Cheers.